sustainability. Looking at the triple bottom line, we have no social sustainability to talk about. We have massive social problems. Truck drivers are leaving the industry. We have profit margins of maybe 1% to 2%, so the economic sustainability is not really that great. We have massive balance sheets in the industry as well, and low profit margins leading to 24/7 operations, which may not be sustainable. And then we have the carbon footprint. This industry is responsible for 7% of the global carbon footprint. 7%. And that's because companies want to move stuff from one place to another. That is 7% of the global carbon footprint. These companies, the shippers, the customers of the transport industry, they are really, really keen on lowering that number. They have targets that they want to be climate neutral by 2035, something like that, 2030 even. And these companies, they are looking at their supplier base and they don't really see the solution there. They don't really see that in the transport industry today. It evolves too slowly. And this is because the transport industry of today is in stagnation mode. The innovation takes place when it comes to vehicle technology, the OEMs. The innovation takes place at the shippers. Maybe some software companies working towards the transport industry, but the transport companies are no longer spending on R&D. In Sweden, they went down, their R&D spending went down between 2015 and 2019 by 85%. Virtually stopped spending on R&D. The reason they do this is because there is nothing left to innovate. That system that they are operating, and I mean the whole global transportation system basically, is based on ideas that have been evolving for 100 years. And now we're introducing electricity into this mix. And the complexity when you add an electric truck to a system like this cannot be understated. If you ask any transport company today if they want an electric truck, they want an electric truck. Of course they do. It has to have the same range as the diesel truck. It has to have the same loading capacity. You must be able to charge it in the same time it takes to fill up the diesel tank, and it shouldn't cost you anything else. And that truck does not exist. It won't exist for quite some time. Instead, you introduce new variables like weather, for instance. If it's windy, you will have a higher energy use per kilometer. If your competitor is next to you charging your truck, you will both have a slower charging session. As an EV owner myself, having a passenger car, I can accept a 20% longer charging session when I'm charging, when I'm out driving. No big deal for me. But you have to multiply that by 10 if you have a 10 times larger battery pack in a truck. Totally unacceptable to have that degree of uncertainty in the system. Especially since when you go electric, you really need to look at your utilization rates because the trucks are more expensive. You need to utilize them much, much more smart. And the current transportation system, I mentioned this a few times now, between 1920 and 1930, trucks really disrupted transport. Trucks took over from horse and carriage in most countries during that decade. It was a huge disruption. The next disruption was 66 years ago. In 1956, the container was introduced. And the container has disrupted and transformed world trade to what we have today, where we can ship anything from anywhere to anywhere inside a standardized box. And you know that that box can be handled by vehicles, by trucks, by trains, by cranes, by ships all over the planet. No problem. That standardization has really disrupted. That's the last time this industry was disrupted, actually, 66 years ago. The principles we put in place to make decisions in the transport industry during the early 70 years of that century, when we didn't have any computers, those principles were based on simplification. Make it as simple as possible to make decisions. Avoid making decisions if you have to. Create a zip code system to divide a country into smaller and smaller pieces. Each piece has a number. The numbers are connected in hierarchy, and bam, you have a sorting algorithm and a classification system that really doesn't care about making decisions in real time. Because you have the sorting system. Every decision is already made once you have divided the country into those small boxes. And that's how the transport system has been evolving. Simple, simple, simple. And when computers arrived in the 1990s, I was working as a researcher back then. We had really big hopes for the computers and how they could revolutionize transport. What we saw was that these computers were used to create bigger and bigger spreadsheets, if you will. Bigger and bigger tables to keep track of all of these boxes and simple shipments. We didn't use computers to make decisions. We used computers to maybe create a route for a distribution run, but we didn't use computers to make system-level decisions. We need to start embracing complexity, not shying away from it. And that's what we are doing today. We are a tech company. We approach these challenges because we have three major disruptions: digitalization, electrification, and automation. All of them will happen regardless of whether anyone wants it or not. They are coming. And to handle these three, we need to embrace the entire system. We cannot cherry pick and just change the truck and keep everything else the same, or change the charger and keep everything else the same, which is the human way. We're very comfortable doing that as human beings. We need to start to leave our comfort zone and go into managing the complexity. And the complexity is very hard for us humans to understand. So what we need to do is find a way to reduce carbon footprint, increase profitability, increase the social sustainability in the system, without losing economic sustainability. And this triangle is full of trade-offs, where you can pull in one corner and the other two will get worse. We need to hack the system, and to embrace complexity is the way to do that. So what we are doing is we are attacking all fronts of this problem. We are not cherry-picking just one of them. We have electric trucks with drivers who are already today to make our shippers transport sustainable. We have a next generation software platform to make the decisions needed in the system connected to all the other components. We are pushing the development of autonomous freight across the planet. We were actually first on the planet to go with cargo on public roads in 2019, with the pod in the middle. I will go deeper into each one of these. I pressed. We are building our own charging network because it's too important to leave to a public charging network when you have a business. You really need to keep track of your kilowatt hours, what you pay for them, how available they are, where they are available, and so on. And we are also upgrading other components in the system, not only the vehicles. We have the trailer as an example here. So the trucks. I mean, we are, as far as we know, the biggest operator of electric heavy transport in Europe. We've been doing it for 2 years now, commercially, and we are growing as we speak. We have orders from several different truck manufacturers of around 450 electric trucks, both in the US and here in Europe, which we believe is one of the bigger expansions on the planet right now. These trucks are making transport sustainable from day one, and they are coordinated and connected. So what we do is we are supplier agnostic. We can buy from several different truck manufacturers, and then we equip the trucks with digital capabilities so that we can manage them using our own central brain in the system called Saga. Saga is the Norse goddess of knowledge. Einride was actually the cover name for the god of thunder, Thor, in Norse mythology. So we have a lot of names coming from that sort of family of ideas. And with Saga, we can take in data from all across the system, not only the data from the shippers, but data from the vehicles, data from the chargers, data from weather services, and all the other things that affect final decision making, so that we will make decisions that are constantly data-driven and not based on rules of thumb like the zip code system, if you will. We are automating the system. We have a driver shortage, as I said. Automation is coming for economic reasons, if not anything else. The pod that we have is cabless. It doesn't even have a driver's cabin. It's basically an electric container on wheels, although it really looks cool. This vehicle will be able to drive by itself unless it experienced some obstacle on the road or something it hasn't seen before. Then we have a remote operator taking over, guiding the vehicle across, and then pressing autopilot again. We are looking at a 90-10 ratio, 90% autonomous, 10% manually, remotely controlled. And the technology behind this remote control was tested actually during South by Southwest last year, when we had the remote operating station in Austin, Texas, and the trucks in Sweden. And they were remotely operated across the Atlantic in real time. So this technology is stable. We also have our own charging network. As I said, it's too important not to take care of the kilowatt hours. We have the electricity prices we have now. It really matters when you charge your truck, when it comes to cost, of course, but also the access to electricity. We need to equip these chargers with digital decision-making capabilities. We need to equip them with booking capabilities, because a truck driver does not want to have to wait for a competitor or another truck driver when charging. So it's all a very, very complex planning session that's needed. And just as a last example, we are upgrading other parts of the system also. Here we have our brand new trailer, which we are building right now. We are upgrading the really stupid semi-trailer, because the semi-trailer is really just something you hook up with a tractor truck. It has some lighting at the back and some hydraulic brakes, and that's it. This trailer has connectivity. It has a battery pack. It has tons of sensors, giving us and the Saga decision-making platform a ton of new ways of solving problems in the system, because the range of the truck is no longer fixed and set in stone when we can charge the trailer. The trailer can be standing still, being loaded and unloaded. The truck can do some other stuff, and while it's being loaded and unloaded, it can be charged. The sensors make sure that the goods are okay and the trailer behaves as it should. This is not science fiction, what we are doing. We are doing it now. We've been around for 6 years. We've been fully commercial for the last 2, doing road transport. We are growing very fast, also here in continental Europe. So keep track of our webpage, nride.tech, or in our social channels if you want to know more about us. So thank you for listening.
Thank you very much for the presentation. So do you think that drivers will eventually lose this job?
No. I don't think that drivers will lose their jobs. We have a massive driver shortage. Mm-hmm. One of the reasons behind that is that very few 20-year-olds will choose this as a career. Mm-hmm. Because they see that living on the road may not be their idea of keeping a family happy at home, sure, or things like that. So we see new tasks for the people driving trucks today, like working in an office with an espresso machine and colleagues, and office hours and remotely operating trucks as one of those options.
I agree that pretty much any revolution has also helped the people who did no longer have that job get another job. So yes, that is the case of ATMs in the US, for example, where it is true that some people would no longer be tellers to give money in the banks, but then the banks would be able to start new branches in smaller towns, and they would have another job,
Yeah.
and
But
a
I mean,
more
yeah.
sophisticated job.
Well, I mean, a truck with a driver cabin that's sold today will be around. It will be around in 20 years somewhere on the planet, but it has an economic lifespan for us of maybe 5 to 8 years, something like that. So, yes, there will be a diminishing need for truck drivers over a long time coming, but there is a massive shortage. We will still need truck because we cannot automate the entire transport system. We will still need manual trucks. But we will, of course, automate where it makes most sense to do so.
So the ratio is going to slowly change.
Slowly change, yes.
Thank you, Per. It was great to have you here.
Thank you.
Per Olof Arnas was with us. A big round of applause. Thank you. So this is still about heavy duty. This is about the electrification. So one of the 3 disruptions that our previous speaker has actually mentioned. This is going to be with Herman Sips, Lead Transport Decarbonization Alliance, Ministry, Infrastructure and Water Management. That's from the Netherlands. So technological revolution that will reduce emissions. That is the topic of the presentation. And since this presentation is going to be online, we're just trying to establish a connection, hopefully a secure one. You know, these days it all matters. And so I can see some movements around the technical staff, the people who run the boards. We're just all looking forward to that. So that's almost here. And what is going to next is also going to be about heavy duty and electrification of heavy duty again. Because Herman Sips' presentation is just an introduction to a panel discussion that will be moderated by Claudia Patricolo. She's the editor-in-chief from CE Energy News. I know that she's in this room. She's getting ready for the meeting. So that is really great. She will have about 6 speakers in the panel discussion. But before that, let me say hi to Herman Sips from the Netherlands. I was told that he was ready. I was told that we were ready too. And it actually is true.
Dzień dobry.
Guten Morgen.
Dzień dobry. Good to see
Dzień
you.
dobry. Great to have you, sir. So let us just go straight into the topic. And so enjoy your presentation. We can hear you, we can see you, and everything works perfect. So dank u wel.
Thanks. Thanks for the opportunity to give this presentation. And first and foremost, maybe my apologies for not being with you, but I had to be in Parliament with my minister for a vote on the European standards on heavy-duty vehicles. So there was a lively debate in Parliament. The vote is yet to come, but I had to be there. So apologies for that. But I would have loved to be with you in Woods. But let me sort of also, because it's running into lunchtime, right, and it's always a difficult sort of moment maybe to give a presentation, but I'd like to make you an offer, and hopefully that's an offer you won't refuse. And maybe the offer is for Poland, you know, to sign the Global Mou on zero-emission medium and heavy-duty vehicles at the upcoming sort of COP in Egypt. And let me sort of run you through a number of slides to explain the offer, and also maybe more importantly, maybe to explain why I think, but obviously you know better, why this could be an interesting offer for Poland, and why I would see great opportunities, and why we would very much welcome sort of Polish leadership on this. Maybe first of all, sorry, I'm going too fast. I think a couple of years back, of course, you know, this whole issue of heavy-duty vehicles and those vehicles being climate neutral was basically considered something that was, you know, almost from a different world, right? And as you can see on the slide. But today we know in a way that the truth is out there. You've probably seen this truck. I haven't, but, you know, the trucks are there, basically. For a long time, there was doubt whether the technology would develop or would be available or would not be available. Well, it is available. And it's also, I think, and I think very much we would need those trucks, right? And that's I don't have to explain that to you. We would need those trucks because clearly heavy-duty freight transportation has a disproportionate contribution to climate change, and is clearly not in line with the Paris Agreement. And you know all these figures, and you probably know them for Poland far better than I do. But clearly there is work to be done on that front. But probably you would think, yeah, this is the climate sort of story, but Herman, you should know by now it's the economy, stupid, right? So, and I know that, right? So what I would like to do is basically then turn to the economy in a way, and this is just a slide, and I just was in the sort of the last bit of the presentation by Einreit, and they're not on this slide, but what you see in the market is basically that many of the car producers are sort of rapidly sort of stepping into this market and expressing quite strong commitments for 2025. It starts a bit slow, but 2030, you already see many sort of expressing a very clear interest and a very clear ambition to have, over 50% of their new sales to be zero emission. So that is a very strong sort of signal of confidence in the market. And again, you maybe think, well, that's all fine, but is it affordable? Well, this is just one graph I'd like to share with you. It comes from a recent study by ICCT showing the total cost of ownership and when that would be, when that total cost of ownership of a ZEV vehicle, when it would be cost competitive compared to a more traditional diesel run vehicle. And this is the situation in Poland. Without any further, based on the current policies, the current incentives, the current fuel prices, and everything else. There's a long sort of explanation in the report itself. And obviously, you can sort of have debates on each of those assumptions, but and then sort of that there will probably slide the years, maybe back and forth, 1 year or 2 years. But I think the most important notion in a way is that relatively soon, that's why I said it's around the corner, it says this prediction says in 2027, these vehicles will be cost competitive compared to the traditional vehicles. And it's our sort of understanding in the Netherlands, and we work under that assumption, that obviously clearly, and you know that better being one of the biggest logistical players in Europe, that this market is and will be sort of highly driven. I think now even more stronger with the current energy prices and crisis, that this market is and will be driven by cost considerations. So once, and I think you hear many express that once the first sort of 10% of the market starts to move to zero electric vehicles, which are more cost competitive, I think that basically sets the new norm in the market. And of course, I don't know exactly, you can probably tell me that better, whether it's going to be 2027 or 2026 or 2028. But in a way, it doesn't matter. It's around the corner and it's very feasible. And it does show that there is a great sort of cost saving potential. So in that sense, I think it's a great offer. If you combine all these elements, then basically, so that brings you to the logic that we applied in setting up and starting our sort of effort to come to a global memorandum of understanding on zero emission vehicles. And you can see the arguments. Basically, the technology is ready. They will be sort of cost effective or at cost parity, at least early next decade, and probably, for many segments of the total fleet. There is obviously always a little bit of a debate on the very heavy, very long haul sort of segment, but that's maybe 5% or 10% of the market. So maybe for 90% there is far less a debate. So and it would be great already to kick that in and to chip that in. Of course, the vehicles can contribute to emission reductions. It will probably also be a very strong contribution to health and equality. So that is also great, I think, for many of the inner cities. And we felt that basically if we align targets with a large group of countries, that would on one hand sort of probably avoid sort of distortions, establish a level playing field, and at the same time send a very strong signal to the market of the direction of travel, and not only of the direction, but also of the speed of travel we'd like to see. And that then in itself, of course, will continue to advance and spur up innovation and generate more jobs, improve energy security, and bring costs down. So that was the reasoning for us, and there was a very specific reason, just to be clear on that, and not to hide that, why we started it as the Netherlands, as part of our climate ambition, which is to become climate neutral by 2050. Are sort of 25 to 40 of the biggest cities that we will have zero emission zones in the Netherlands for freight transportation. But that ambition is very clear. But obviously, we realize that if you set that ambition, but if you don't have the vehicles, then of course you have a problem, because then nothing moves. So that for us was a very sort of clear understanding. Let's work on beefing up and sending strong signals to the market that we'd like to see a larger volume of models and supply of those vehicles. I think we were very successful in bringing at least 16 countries together last year at the Climate Summit in Glasgow. I'm not going to name them all. You can see their flags. And you can see the presentation of my former minister on the left-hand side, probably for you the right-hand side, on the picture. So that we launched this global MOU as one of the two sort of main declarations during Transport Day at the COP in Glasgow. What does it entail? It basically is an aspirational sort of document. It's called the Global MOU. It has no legal implications in the more formal sense of a multilateral agreement, but it's an aspirational document where the countries and the signatories basically say that we sort of strive to have sort of 100% of our new sales zero emission by 2040. And we sort of picked that sort of date because we know if you want to be sort of climate neutral by 2050, and it takes you 10 years to overhaul your fleet, at least 10 years, then it should be no later than 2040. So that's why we said 100% of new sales is zero emission by 2040. And of course, that market needs a boost at the beginning. Globally, we said it's 30%. From the graph I've shown before, you already see so car producers now, in very many cases, sort of exceeding that number. So it could even be a higher number, because we even said in more advanced markets, you could sort of end up with higher numbers for individual countries or individual groups of countries. And no surprise, just to be clear on that, of course, the Netherlands will be arguing in the upcoming revision of the European standards for heavy-duty vehicles for a very ambitious revision along these lines. And again, you might sort of think, well, this is all nice as governments to do this. But what we sort of did with the Global MOU, and you can see that on this slide, and again, I'm not going to read all of them, that we also have a great number of endorsers, as we call them. So it's support from businesses and cities and states like California that basically say, yes, we support you, and we think that the aspiration expressed in the Global MOU is a good one. So again, it's not government going alone or government going crazy or government going almost against the grain of what the market is seeing as possible, but there is a clear support. And in a way, my call, that was the offer in a way, or maybe I should say it's a call on you, is to become part of this group. If you, as Poland itself, Poland would be a great signatory to the Global MOU. And if you're a city, if you're a company, and you think, well, we think this makes sense, then please, contact us to, to be an endorser of the Global MOU. And maybe in conclusion, in a way, and that's going to conclude my presentation, just to sum up why I think, because this is easily said, right, maybe from a Dutch perspective, but at the same time, I think it does make a lot of sense for Poland. I think Poland is a very big sort of car logistics sort of player. If the new norm in the market very soon will be, more cost-effective vehicles with far better cost, far better performance, far less maintenance, far less energy dependency, then that is going to be the new norm. And I would then sort of probably think that if you're the biggest sort of player in the logistics markets in Europe, you'd better be ahead of the curve than sort of running after the curve. And you'd better be maybe the front runner and catch the early benefits of making that transition than having to catch up with your competitors. So that would be one. Obviously, there is, I think, if I understand correctly, I learned that in Katowice at the World Urban Forum, you do have a great bus industry which makes sort of electrical buses. And I'm not an engineer, but the drivetrains of buses are pretty similar to those of trucks. So again, many sort of say, well, buses are a nice lead into the market for heavy duty vehicles. And there is that great sort of appetite, I would almost say, with car producers anyway, to produce different vehicles, and also partly to produce them maybe in sort of different and new sort of offers where mobility is offered as a service, where you don't have to buy the truck, but you can sort of have it as a package together with the maintenance and together with the charging infrastructure. So you don't have that barrier of the high upfront costs. So again, in the market, there is a lot of interesting new sort of developments that would make it far more easy to sort of, even for smaller companies, to enter into this domain. And clearly, I mean, but you know that better. I've heard that you just launched your first zero emission zone in Krakow, if I understand correctly. It fits very well with that ambition, and for air quality and other reasons, of course. I trust that you hopefully will see many more of them. So if you take that all together, we think it's a very attractive sort of offer. That sort of there is a great number of reasons why there should be a great ability for Poland to join and Polish companies to contribute to this. And I may have been sounding a little bit like a sort of maybe a commercial break. It was a long commercial break, but I just wanted to give you this in this way, almost as an offer, as a proposition for you to consider. Partly, maybe I'm talking to the converted, because PSPA has been driving this agenda, I think, in a very great way for many years, and has been making those arguments. But if you consider everything that is being said by the markets, by research, by probably also investors and banks being ready to support and probably offer financial support to this, I think it all adds up to the truth being out there, and a great opportunity to be part of a group of front runners. And with that, I'd sort of like to conclude, and thank you for your attention. Dziękuję bardzo.
Joining us from the Netherlands. So what is the voting going to be about that you're interested in later today in your parliament?
Well, the vote, it was interesting that there was sort of two sort of motions sort of seconded to be voted upon. One was very practical, to make up a plan to come with demands for the cooling vehicles, which was very practical, very pragmatic. And the other one is whether the Netherlands would be ready, whether my minister would be ready to advocate in Europe a 2035 date for all sales of heavy-duty vehicles to be zero emission. So the vote is
interesting
later.
and very,
it's going to be
very
interesting.
needed. Indeed. Thank you very much. We will actually now follow with a panel discussion on your topic, so this will be continued, and I highly recommend that you visit us next year here in Łódź at the Congress. It'd be great. Elektryfikacja transportu ciężkiego, rewolucja technologiczna, która zredukuje emisje. Teraz czas na tę debatę. Szybko przedstawię naszych panelistów. Per Anders Grosfield, Director, Electric Solution, Volvo Trucks. Per Olof Arnas, Director, Logistics Strategy. You've met the gentleman before. Dariusz Mroczek, Category Area Manager, IKEA Supply Chain Operations. Wojciech Rowiński, Dyrektor Generalny Scania Polska. Klaus Wallenstein, Managing Director, CEO, MAN Truck and Bus Polska. And Szymon Byliński, Dyrektor Departamentu Elektromobilności i Gospodarki Wodorowej, Ministerstwo Klimatu i Środowiska. You are all welcome on this stage, and Claudia Partitricolo from CEE Energy News is your moderator, and I turn it over to her. Claudia, good luck. Good to have you.
Okay, thank you, and welcome everybody. Actually, I got a surprise. There is an extra speaker I didn't know about, so I'm just going to be honest about that. So if I mispronounce your name, I haven't practiced for that, so sorry about that. So thank you very much. We are now starting this panel discussion about the decarbonization of the heavy-duty transport. And I mean, it's no secret that it's a great challenge, especially for the short time frame that we have ahead of us. And I was actually thinking before about like 2050, we have the Fit for 55 package, but now also listening to the presentation from the Netherlands, we also have to think about 2040. So it's something actually even closer than expected. And also, the time frame is not the only challenge, because I'm speaking with experts constantly, and when analyzing, for example, the alternative fuels infrastructure regulation, a lot of people have pointed out that it is actually important to not take out the part about LNG or bio-LNG and CNG, so which actually clashes a little bit with the electricity part, with the hydrogen part, with the non-emission part. So also this is something I would like to discuss today. I would like to start with something that Per Olof said before, because you mentioned that the ideal truck does not exist today, and it won't exist for a short time. So I would like to hear the point of view of the gentlemen that are on stage with us today. So what's your current fleet made of, and what are your plans? What can you tell us a little bit more about what's the future of electromobility in this sector? And I'd like to give the floor to Per Anders first.
Okay, yeah, so Claudia, so to start briefly look on the global outlook for transport, heavy transport needs, we believe that as we see an increase, a global population and with an increased middle class, which is connected, which will contribute to increased demand of construction and transportation. And on top of that, then booming e-commerce. So we, at least I believe that will make that in general the need for transportation will continue to increase. And also we have urbanization as a global mega trend, which will make the growing cities have three challenges. You have the congestion, you have the emission and the noise. And I believe that we will see more efficient distribution systems, so less half-empty trucks are going into the cities when more actors work together. And Also that more and more cities will start with low emission zone or diesel bans. So we will see more electric trucks on the road contributing to a more emission-free and also quiet environment for the people in the cities and around the cities. So also that we make possibilities for doing night transport and use more hours per day. And we at Volvo, we believe that the coming years we will see different truck technologies. And so, for example, for heavy transport, driving long distances, we believe that the fuel cell electric trucks will be important to do those with a minimum CO2. And
what kind of distance are we talking about here? Because right today, Volvo Trucks actually announced a new line. So
yes.
You're expanding also your fleet.
Yes, yes, Claudia. I'm so glad to be here with you, all of you, because today, actually now today, as we speak, the first heavy-duty serial production trucks are being built in the factory. So this is a milestone for us. And so now the full program, Volvo FL, FE, FM, FH, and FMX, are using our full industrial and production system. So in the production line, actually now the customer could choose if it's a diesel driveline, LNG driveline, or electrical driveline. And of course, we hope as many as possible will choose the electrical driveline. But of course, that is something you say, what is the range? It of course depends on the needs of if it's a really long distances, then we cannot reach them. Then the fuel cell will come and also help with that. But what I can say again with the technologies there is, if you compare a fuel cell electric truck with a battery electric truck, it will always be the most energy efficient, the most environmental friendly, and also at the lowest operating cost to do it with a battery electric truck. And that is because in all the other truck technologies, you have energy losses. So in fuel cell truck doing the same transportation, it's about 3 times more energy that is needed, because you have energy losses when producing the hydrogen, transporting the hydrogen, and converting hydrogen to energy. So definitely battery electric truck will stay with us for the future.
We will also go in a little bit more into details about that later. I'd like now to give the floor to Klaus, talking about similar topics. So what do you think is the future of electromobility, and if you see any potential for MAN-Truck also in the Central and Eastern European region? And do I need a headset for the...
No, it's fine.
Okay.
I understand. Thank you, Claudia. Thanks for having me here. Yes, and I agree absolutely 100% that the battery electric-driven vehicles are the best in terms of efficiency and in terms of environmentally friendly. Therefore, we are focusing full on that. For MAN, the range and what we have, I must say we are quite ahead here when we look at the smaller vehicles like transporters up to 3.5 ton and buses. We have seen yesterday maybe our 18-meter bus. So looking at this and also 6x2 distribution vehicles we have already in the market, very successful. In terms of long haul, we see a certain development which is still necessary regarding the business case. Because this is basically the key for everything, that the business case is available for the customers, that the costs are under control, that charging infrastructure is fit enough and strong enough. Therefore, we believe that around 2024 we can start also with the long-haul operations and the first productions of heavy-duty long-haul tractors. So we will show a lot on that on the IAA next week. So everybody's invited to come there and to see much more details I cannot talk about today in detail. But generally, I must say I'm very positive looking into the future regarding this. When I also see the Congress here, the event, and also the policy situation here, how much interest is about that. I think it's really the future. We are aware of that, and ambitious targets can only be reached by the right and efficient products and solutions.
Thank you. And I don't know who was before at the presentation of IKEA also, because you had a presentation just right outside the building. So I would like to ask you about what's the role of logistic companies actually now in the electromobility sector.
That was still for me?
No, it's sorry.
Sorry.
It's for Darek. Sorry.
Thank you very much, Claudia, for this question. IKEA is a big and well-recognized international company, actually, with over 2 million per year shipments, full load shipments. I think that's important to mention also on the heavy-duty trucks. We want to take the responsibility for creating actually the sustainable planet. And here in our strategy, even in People and Planet Positive strategy, which is integral part of our development, we see that electromobility for heavy trucks is one of the major movements that we can see and foresee that will change actually the future. And here, together with Volvo and Volvo Trucks and Raben group, we have decided together to go to the project where we want to start, and we want to be first here in Poland, in Europe, to actually start and develop this road and show this road a little bit also for the other international companies who don't own their own truck fleet, but can play very important role in the totality of the movement and sustainability. And we have very ambitious goals. By 2030, we want to actually decrease the CO2 emission on our heavy-duty transport by 70%, and by doing so, this is one of the main things. And today, what we are starting the project, the conference we just had actually, we are super proud of this. That together with Volvo Trucks and Raben Group, we will start this project just coming now in the autumn in a couple of our factories here, IKEA Industry, which belongs to IKEA, in Poland, which is the biggest basically in the world factory producing wooden furniture. We will together actually drive this truck between those factories, which is the distance of 12 kilometers today. But this is the first thing what we can learn. We will have the full actually loading stations prepared for that. We will have fully 100% green energy to actually load the trucks. So this is not only the first thing, but this is also 100% sustainable solution. And this is what we want to start, and this is what we want also to prove in this project, that it can be done, and it can be done on heavy-duty trucks, actually. So
when you say first in Poland, then I expect that you're thinking about other countries as well, and a replicable model for other countries.
Absolutely, this is only the starting point for us. So we take like 6 months right now to really learn how it goes, because it's not only about the electrifying, but it's also about how do we build the infrastructure, how efficiently do we build it, how do we load the truck, how do we unload the truck. So it's not only the truck itself, but it's also, we believe that with the right preconditions creating, we will create less needs for less trucks on the road as well, for basically moving the same cargo. So from that point of view, I believe this is a really fantastic way to start. And IKEA wants to absolutely play here the major role in this movement.
Going back to automotive companies, I'd like also to hear the point of view of Scania, Wojciech, because I saw just before that Scania is also a member of this Global Mou. So what is your take on the future of electromobility?
Well, yes, we very much believe that economy will take over and the social pressure and technology will allow that heavy transport will be electric. And together with Daimler and with Volvo Trucks, we have initiated this CV Charging Europe initiative joint venture that will establish 1,700 heavy-duty chargers, just to boost this technology, to show that it is available, because as a manufacturer, EA will show next week all are having a transport solution now or trucks. Now we need infrastructure, and we will invest in that to speed up the development. Of course, we are also looking into other technologies. We are having LNG, CNG, we are having plug-in hybrids, we are having hydrogen trucks, but those are the technologies that at the end of the day, everything will be electric. We believe so. And we need to embrace those other technologies as the steps in between. Because let's be frank, the whole infrastructure, the whole technology shift is financed by today combustion trucks. And we need to have those steps in between the today combustion transport and fully electric.
And I'd like now to hear also the point of view of the government here, of the ministry, because we heard before during the presentation that Poland can actually be a great case for the electromobility. So what's your take from the ministry point of view?
From our point of view, we as a regulator, we try to help the market to develop. As we discuss the electromobility development in our country, it's very, everyone are expected that government will focus mostly on the infrastructure, because without the infrastructure there will be no development of electric transport. We try to be technology neutral, because we think that we shouldn't focus only on one technology. But of course, electromobility, I think, is the leader of all the technology in transport sector. And I personally have some doubts on the electricity in long-haul transport. So maybe I shouldn't be here, but still we are waiting. We are waiting, and we would like to see how different technology will develop. And because when it comes to long-haul transport, we discuss electricity, hydrogen, synthetic fuels, maybe natural gas in some period.
So if not electricity, what would you go for?
For hydrogen or synthetic fuel from hydrogen. Because when we use synthetic fuel from hydrogen, we still will have the same trucks, in my opinion. But we of course think how to develop the infrastructure for charging electric vehicles in long-haul transport. But it will need to develop electricity grid, because we will need more power to charge our trucks, and maybe it's not impossible, but it takes time to develop the grid and to prepare all the parking lots along the highways or other roads for charging electric trucks. We are working on the new plan on development of infrastructure, and we're still waiting for new European regulation on the alternative infrastructure in transport, because in this regulation there will be some obligation for the member states to fulfill. Thank you.
Okay, so this was the easy part. Now we can go tackle a little bit of the challenges that you mentioned, because you mentioned right now about this infrastructure word. So without the infrastructure, we cannot go further. But then there are other people saying without the technology, we cannot go further. So there is always the same dilemma every time. Every time that I talk about this topic, is infrastructure or technology. And I'd like to start with infrastructure, and I would like to start with Klaus, because actually you were mentioning now this new MAN e-track, and that will be on the road from 2024. And are we talking about like a distance that it's up to 800 kilometers right now? And it can go up to 1,000 kilometers. So what's the challenge of the charging infrastructure when we talk about 1,000 kilometers of road?
Yes, that is a challenge, yeah, exactly. But let me just mention something regarding hydrogen, additionally what the colleague said here. It is, of course, a bridging or also a technology which might have its place. We just know at the moment it cannot have the same efficiency in total, and also hydrogen must be produced completely green. But there is a fuel cell. There are fuel cell trucks which have already a better range. And this is a development we're also looking into, yeah, just to add that. We have with Bavaria, with the Bavarian state and in Germany, a project and have a fleet, and we will have the first hydrogen long-haul trucks in 2024, tested from customers, so this is a great project. But we believe it will be more a segment topic, not the main topic because of the better efficiency of the electric trucks. Regarding your topic, infrastructure.
No, so let's keep the infrastructure for now, and just let me focus a little bit. We'll go back to infrastructure then, because let's focus a little bit more on hydrogen then, because also Scania was mentioning you have some hydrogen trucks. So is there like a business case that you would like to show us? And I mean, if we talk about benefits of hydrogen or disadvantages of hydrogen, I mean, it is quite expensive. So how do we go from here? Yes.
Yes, of course, we are looking into all technologies that are carbon free. So as long as it is sustainable, as long as it is environmental friendly, of course it is important to look at. As a whole TRATON group, we believe that technology of pure electric trucks are developing so fast that we want to focus on that. But of course, we understand that as poor as charging infrastructure will develop, as good the hydrogen solutions will be needed. So we also, since we are ready to serve the customers with any solutions they need, we also have a hydrogen solution as a possible but not preferred mean of energy in the trucks. And then this infrastructure, it is developing pretty natural way. Yes, we are on the beginning of new technology. I always joke that when the steam machines were started to be pushed out at the end of 19th century, yes, I remember to go for my scout camp still with the steam locomotive. Yes, so it takes a time. 100 years, I don't think that this change will take 100 years, but it takes a time. But it is naturally developing. We are now very well established with the products, all manufacturers with local transport. We can all produce 16-ton truck for the urban logistic. We have all communal applications solved, and there is easiest to have a charging network within the cities. Now we go regional. We will need some kind of a charger, opportunity charger on the way, and then we will go long haul, full-fledged. But again, this long haul is not that dramatic. We are now having ranges of 300 kilometers. Normal truck going on the European motorway is going 4.5 hours with 85 kilometers per hour, and then it has to stop for 45 minutes due to driver drive time. And this is the task. We need to have a coverage for this 4.5-hour drive, which means around 400 kilometers, then charge the batteries within 45 minutes, and then we can go another 4.5 hours. So the lion part of European transport will be solved by that. So we are not that far away, but yes, it is a process. And in the meantime, we will have plug-in hybrids, we will have LNG, we will have biogas, we will have hydrogen, just to support the customer with the technology that is most suitable and see TCO advantage for them.
Does everybody agree with that? Because I see some people nodding, some others are not really convinced. Yes, Per-Olof, you wanted to say something.
Yes, thank you. Might not be a surprise since I represent the tech industry here, but 2035 is way too long in the future. The customers we work with, they are in a hurry. So they are, I mean, the front is moving crazy fast right now. We are seeing new technologies being deployed every month now in the industry, in different aspects of it. Yes, it's good that we will have sort of a cap on fossil technology in most countries before long to keep, because we have a long tail of balance sheets being dragged along. So a truck sold today will be in operation in 20 years, somewhere in the world. But for us, we see the clear need of moving fast for these very large companies that we work with. And one way of moving even faster would be for government to stop subsidizing fossil technology now and start putting those funds into fossil-free technology instead. And that's a big, big change. But it needs to happen. It needs to happen, and the shippers out there, they know that. Because many of them are consumer-facing brands, and they see that their customers are no longer accepting the roadmaps that will end at 2035 or something like that.
Sorry, you wanted to say something?
Yes, very good, thank you. Yeah, regarding the infrastructure also, and this problem, hen or egg, you know, what is the problem? What comes first? It's a mix. It's really a mix. You cannot separate it. And when you look at what the colleague from Scania said, also that you have this driver who has to have a brake, and then he has to charge his truck. And when the batteries are sufficient, are developed from the weight and from the capacity, in a way that they can have more capacity, of course, and then also the charging can be faster. And you have the right setup of charging stations, which is the project we have in Triton, developing and planning to install 1,700 charging stations in Europe. Then this can go. Yeah, but it's very important to have the right combination. Also, too high charging, 1.2, 1.3 megawatt, could be then too much and not enough for loading a lot of trucks at the same time, because you will have then the traffic jam on the stations, the places there, you know, so the rest places, resting areas. I mean, it is really a topic developing the right technology and at the same time developing the infrastructure, you know.
It should be happening in parallel.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you need both. That means we cannot say, oh no, we have the right trucks, fine, we need infrastructure. We have to develop the trucks. And I think MAN, especially focusing at that, we have battery technology we will develop. We have own production planned from 2023 onwards in Germany, in Nuremberg, our engine fabric. And we'll start with the production of batteries, which will have then the right capacity and the right performance to be used in long haul as well.
See, but Anders, you raised your hand.
I was just thinking about when it comes to transformation. I mean, we humans always believe that it will be a linear transition, but it never happens. It always goes slower in the beginning, but then it always goes faster in the end when we believe and much more things is happening. So yeah, that's what I.
And what are for you the charging infrastructure solutions?
Yeah. So for charging. It is really parking time is charging time, and whether if it's the night is standing still during the night, or when the driver is taking his or her resting hour, or for unloading or loading, when it's the time to charge. So what we include with our trucks, what we deliver now. So for the heavy-duty trucks, we also will then deliver an AC charger for 43 kilowatt, and that is good enough for night charging. So what we see most of our customers that have already started their electric journey, they are driving during the day because they start with a route they can charge during the night and then driving during the day, and that works fine with them. But of course, then going long distances, as we talked about, then you also need then public charging in some way. So of course, then it could be that you have some fast charger at terminals where you do the unloading and loading, and then different haulage companies can charge their trucks there.
You're saying charging the night and then driving during the day, but usually it's also the other way around. I mean, personally, when I drive and I see a lot of trucks during the day, I mean, usually I see more of them during the night because they're trying to avoid the traffic and everything. If we allow them just to charge during the night, then we create like more traffic during the day. And if we do the other way around, we have more like traffic at the charging station and less on the road. Yeah,
that's true. That's a good point, Claudia. So, but as it is today, when you start with operation, then it is like that usually you do the transportation at the day and then charge it during the night. But as you say, the possibilities will be that you could then drive more during the night, and that will make it much better, and you have then with the low noise and everything. So, yeah.
I see everybody has a point to make. So, but Olof, you start, and then it's Darek.
I would like to challenge the idea of long haul as some sort of norm.
Some sort of?
Norm, that we are trying to have a one-to-one replacement. We need long haul because trucks really want to go for days on end to reach their destinations. Truck drivers don't want to do that. We need to take a more granular approach to the whole transport system. Maybe we should think more of a Pony Express than the long haul as the norm. Let the drivers come home to their families every day, have a relay system instead, and then the reason we don't do this is because of the complexity, because to do that would require, in the end, quantum computers. But we will have that in 10 years. We will have quantum as a service. It will be possible to have that level of planning, that level of control of the system. And I think that's what we need to strive for, not to replace the current system one-to-one, because that's a missed out opportunity if we don't actually take the effort now to also go fully digital and really start to make different types of decisions.
There was Darek first.
Thank you. Building on that a little bit, even IKEA, we don't own actually heavy-duty truck, but we cooperate. And for us, it's very obvious that from sustainability, it's super important for the world that we take the full step right now. So we actually promoting the fossil-free fuel. We are not for LNG at all, to be completely honest. Yeah, we really want this. And to build a little bit on this, what you have
not
mentioned.
Even in the short term, like the famous bridge to the renewables part.
And what we believe also is that the intermodality could be one of the bridge, kind of like in Europe, for example. We already transport half of our goods on intermodality. So you have this kind of short distances to bring and take it by train. So from that point of view, we strongly believe that you can already have with fossil-free fuel the solutions which will actually build the sustainable future.
Yeah, perfect. I would like to only mention that we kind of have a confidence on supply chain, but the shift will not change if there will be no demand. And then I think that it's very important for what IKEA is, I think, a very good example of not a transporter, but a transport buyer who, when is involved in the whole system, that will change much, much faster. Because then we can understand what the transport buyer need and what is the real demand that is put it on a transport company. And then from the supplier and from the buyer of the transport, we can support the transport company to really solve this shift in the most efficient way, understanding that the transport company will never be able to bear the whole cost of the shift.
I see that we have also a comment coming from online. I don't know if we have the audio.
Thank you, Claudia. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can, yes.
Yeah, sorry, I seem to be almost on a different sort of planet than on the screen, at least, than the knowledgeable gentleman in the panel. But maybe two reflections on what was said. I mean, it strikes me, and that is very interesting, that much of the debate is not about the if or about the when, but basically about the how can we do this, right? And I think the encouraging thing is that basically we're testing solutions, we're trying to understand in the different segments, giving the different characteristics of rides and fleets and the needs of the shippers, how solutions could play out. And just to my proposition, to come back to that, we in our sort of global MOU, we don't distinguish between whether hydrogen, battery electric, or ERS is sort of favored, as long as it's end of tailpipe zero emission. And the great thing is basically that the market will tell us and cost considerations will tell us. And I'd like to sort of the consideration on the charging infrastructure. It is almost a new frontier, right? First, there was the technology isn't ready. There was the range anxiety, then there was the battery anxiety. We see that developing very quickly. In my personal view, I think we're sort of where we were with renewables a couple of years ago. Technology continues to develop very rapidly. The gentlemen on the podium know that far better, but that's what we observe. And then indeed, so it shifts to charging infrastructure with maybe two or three questions. How do you start on time? In a sort of differentiated approach, and how do you invest sort of smartly recognizing, maybe to bring that into the mix, that there is also a great opportunity to with the charging infrastructure to contribute to grid stability, right? It's not only a burden, but with bidirectional charging, with an overload of an abundance, I should say, of renewable energy around lunchtime, it makes it perfect, to use renewables for fast charging of heavy duty freight. And I would very much hope in very many ways, maybe 2 calls, that's how I sort of listen to the panel, that for very many segments in the market, we can already move at great speed. I appreciate all the ambition by MEN, by Traton, by Scania, by Volvo, by IKEA. I would all hope they join us. But I mean, so and let's not make that maybe that last 5% or whatever it is, 10% of that very long haul sort of part of the journey indeed be the benchmark. And let's indeed do then the 95% while we try and figure out what that last bit maybe sort of implies. But let's use the opportunity as they present themselves. Dziękuję bardzo.
For your comment. On what you said, I'm actually happy that we're discussing the how. I don't think this is the time to discuss if or when. I mean, we are far away from that. And Shibon, having heard all the needs and all the challenges highlighted today, you mentioned that what is needed are new plans and new regulations. Is there something upcoming from the national point of view that you would like to highlight?
I think as for today, on the regulatory side, we already have an electromobility bill. We have some different programs that support the development of the infrastructure. What we are working, we at the beginning, because electric vehicles in transport of goods, it's a different kind of issue than electric vehicles as a passenger car. So now we try to see where we can develop the infrastructure for the electric trucks in the fastest way and the most efficient way. Of course, we need to start thinking about how to incentivize the development of the low emission transport in transport of goods, because what we remember that Poland is one of the biggest. In Poland, we have a lot of transport companies. We are, I think, in the European Union, we're one of the biggest countries with when it comes to the transport of goods. So that's why we need to support.
And the battery producer.
Yes. So that's why we need to support this transport sector.
Yeah, great really to hear, because we were discussing that on a former panel, that it is a bit of a competition now. We can see a lot of support programs being issued on every member state in Europe, supporting heavy transport in different ways, in capital costs, in purchasing the trucks, sometimes in operational costs, in taxation for the motorways, sometimes even tax in the accounting is supported. But then we would like to encourage and speak as a unified forum to encourage our state bodies to really support it, because we are talking about over 1 million people working in TSL in Poland. We are having 44% of international transport in Europe. We are having 6% of GDP produced by this industry, and we are having over 16 billion zloty paid in direct taxes by this industry in Poland. And the risk is that if that is not supported, Polish transporters has proven for the last 25 years to be very operational and be very, very professional and efficient. So as a manufacturers, we will sell those trucks to Polish transporters. Unfortunately, those might be the European filial of the Polish company, and those trucks will be sold and registered somewhere in Europe. So here, I think that we have a common responsibility and a kind of a mission to really make it so the whole transport industry in Poland has an equal competition right established by us manufacturer, by our legal system, by tax system, by support system, using all European funds to really support them for the next 2-3 decades to have this fantastic level of service for the whole European Union. Thanks.
I think this was like a key word of the entire conference, because in every panel we talked a lot about cooperation and for the whole value chain and everything. I wanted to go back to Per Olaf about the, you said before that you have ordered for like trucks from the US and the EU. What about the pods, for example, and is there a market here in Poland for that and this region broadly?
The pods, our autonomous vehicles, we are developing them ourselves because no one else is doing it. So we are deploying them with select customers right now. And we are constantly pushing the boundaries, what can be done with these types of vehicles and what types of permits are needed. So we will actually the first one to get the permit on US soil for a fully autonomous truck in May this year, before the American manufacturers actually. So we're really proud about that. So we are pushing boundaries now, and we are always doing it together with customers who are also wanting to push boundaries.
Yeah, I'm
so
interested
it depends on if you have a Polish customer.
Country, yeah, and in this country in particular, or this region, because so far when we talked even about simple electric cars, still the surveys show that a lot of people don't agree about electric vehicles. They are a little bit afraid of driving them, and so what about a truck, an autonomous truck? I mean, it's a little bit scary. I mean, the pictures were scary.
I mean, when we talk about autonomous cars, most people think about Elon Musk's Tesla picking you up at the restaurant and driving you home, driving in city traffic and all of those complex situations. We are looking at it from entirely different direction. We are picking the low-hanging fruits. We want to automate where it's easiest to automate. Right now, it's within closed-off areas or nearby closed-off areas in industrial areas. We are now dipping our toes into going on highways. Because the complexity, even if the speed is higher, the complexity is lower when you go on a highway. So the automation of the transport system will happen on the highways first, not in the loading bays or in the city traffic. Most of us think about autonomous driving in cities, but that's not where the big volume will be deployed. It's actually on the motorways.
As we still have 5 minutes, well, less than 5 minutes left, I'd like to see if there are questions from the audience, because I think this is a very interesting panel. We have very interesting speakers. So I'd like to see if you have any remarks or any questions that you would like to ask. Feel free to do so right now. No, not really. Okay. Please.
Yeah, I would like to add something also what the colleague said. I mean, it's a mindset change, you know, the whole electric mobility for the drivers, you know, for the owners, for public, for the workshops, for the service, for the finance institutes and all of that. And this is because we, as MAN, we think about a holistic approach. So we have consultancy for the whole topic, you know, discussing with the partners, and this is of course also what IKEA was mentioning here, you know, that they need to see the full picture, and that you have this, let's say, right combination of services, financing, complete business case, you know, residual values, exchange of the batteries, you know, getting new batteries for a fixed pricing, that your costs are under control, and the full business case is working. I think this is an important approach that we discussed that also with the end customer or with the buyer of the transport, exactly. And we're approaching that. Yeah.
Per-Anders?
I just think as we are so running out of time, what I would like also to bring out that there are, I mean, what we're talking about, there are many pieces of a puzzle that you have to put together. What is range, charging infrastructure, what to do with the batteries when they serve the first life and so on. But what I think is what what you have done, Darek, at IKEA is really to take the first step, because by taking the first step and getting, then you are in the best position to get all the pieces of them together and then take the next step from them. So do not focus too much on all the complexity, but taking the first step, that is a good thing.
Darek?
Just to build on that, I would like to say that this project we are starting today is exactly for this purpose, to understand, to try, and then to explore and actually expand. And that's what it is about, to rethink the whole supply chain from that point of view.
I think we also have one last comment from online, if we can have the audio.
Thank you, Claudia. Maybe one remark and also maybe an invitation to the gentleman on the podium. Next week, energy ministers will meet in Pittsburgh at the Clean Energy Ministerial, and we will organize and Trayton is part of the panel in which we will discuss that. We will discuss a high-level event on charging infrastructure where we hope to send to utilities and energy ministers basically two main messages. One is, start planning on time. The other one is, start investing wisely, right, in the proper combinations between public and private interest. And we'd like to sort of flesh that out and then take that forward. If there is any suggestion by anyone in the audience and also by the panelists, please do send them to us, because we do think that bridge, charging infrastructure is probably the next frontier. So we very much hope to, with that meeting and the follow-up to that, to be actively talking to anyone and really sort of move that issue forward, because I think there is a great potential, as the panel has shown. Thanks.
Thank you. So to close the panel, I'd like to ask each of you, if you can give me, exactly as we began, we were talking about the ideal truck. So it's 2035 or 2040. What are the two characteristics of the ideal truck that it's not ideal anymore, it's on the road? Who wants to start? The last one has more time to think about it. Per Olaf, you already have the microphone.
So can you repeat the two characteristics?
Two characteristics of the 2040 truck on the road.
The truck 2040 will not look like a truck looks today. It will be fully autonomous, it will be connected, and we will not think about transport the way we are thinking about transport today. We will think about transport as a system that provides utility for the entities using it, the shippers, the ones who need to move stuff. So we will not think about transport as a bunch of individual vehicle movements. We will think about it as a black box that delivers stuff where they need to go. Like sausages and laws, we don't really want to know how it's made. We only want to know the end results, and that's the future transportation system.
This made me think when I was something like 8, and it was 1991, and we were about to approach 2000, so I remember my teacher asked us to imagine the new millennium, and I actually mentioned pods. It was like, I think this is going to be the future. Of course, it was 1 year, so nothing really changed. Klaus, what's your closing statement?
Connectivity is key, I guess. Steering the trucks, of course, in a better way, faster and quicker. Of course, most likely the driver will be not in the focus anymore. Autonomous driving is, of course, when we see the cost situation, right, as it is now, the TCO cake, we see that the driver costs are very high. So therefore, we're developing that and also started with a lot of projects here in MAN to focus on this, because we believe this is the way in the future, definitely. And also, that is not a truck. I mean, it's already now that you buy the services and everything included, but it will be much stronger then. So you buy really a transport service, basically, which is fully organized and fully transparent for you, for your costs, and also for your, to optimize your business.
Thank you. Darek?
And from us, from IKEA, I think the dream here is that we don't have to think about anymore what kind of trucks. All the trucks will be sustainable, and 100% basically will support the sustainability. That's for me the thing.
Simon?
I don't know how the ideal truck will look like.
What do you hope it will look
but
like?
I think that this truck will be online, but I hope that in 2040 we could use a lot of low emission trucks, and all the regulation will be in place, and I will be able to look into my last 15 years in 2030 and said that I support the development of low emission transport.
Wojciech?
I think that in 2040 we will not talk about trucks anymore. We will talk about movement of goods. And the truck will be some kind of a utility that no one will really think of. It will be about moving goods from A to B in a seamless, very efficient way, not only energy efficiently, but also filling rate will be completely different. Yes, 50% of cargo space today is empty in Europe. And yes, it might be some sad approach to manufacturers, yes, because if we are well known in the world for V8 engines and fantastic cab comfort, yes, what will we do? Yes, we will supply this very reliable solution to transport goods. So we will talk about goods, not anymore about the truck.
Thank you. But Anders?
Yeah, so just to summarize in 2 words, and the 2 words I'm thinking of is the future is electric and connected. That's the one I think of. Yeah.
Thank you. So thank you everybody for participating in this panel discussion. It was really great. Thank you for listening, and give the word back to Mathieu.
Yeah, thank you very much to all the panelists and to Claudia for your outstanding work at the Congress. So everybody is welcome to take a break, because this is actually the time for us to do so. But let me tell you about what's coming up. PSPA, the Polish Alternative Fuels Association, together with United Nations Global Compact Network Poland, they've prepared this panel discussion that will be on the future or the present of the energetic or electric transformation. So that's coming up, and we're also here at this room because the panel discussion of United Nations Global Compact Network Poland is going to take in the PSPA room. But here, we will be back at 1:15, and that will be with the representative of Otomoto about the number of Polish people who are ready for the electric revolution. And then we will also talk about the first year of this governmental program here in Poland, which is called Mój Elektryk. So that's coming up. I hope everybody enjoys this break. And don't forget that the lunch is being distributed just one level below. Thank you again.